Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show to talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about episode 4 of Bulgasal, Immortal Souls. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're immediately picking up where episode 3 left off. Hual is standing in front of the woman he's wanted revenge against for so long. It's like, after all these years, you're finally in front of me. I have everything I need right in front of me, except the wrinkle is that his former wife is there, reincarnated as her sister. So he can't really do much. He's like, why are you here? Why are you beside that woman? And so he has no choice but to let them go. And on his way driving, he learns from, he remembers what the seer from his, or the old lady who knew so much from his village. She says that basically the reason, they will reincarnate, but the reason why this all happened is because they're tied to your karma, and there's no breaking those bonds. You will reincarnate they will reincarnate. Now, they might reincarnate as enemies or friends. So, there's no escaping this because those bonds can't be so broken easily. And now it's right. It runs at that time in the episode, he knew he ran into, the woman he's after plus his former wife. But then eventually later on, he runs into his adopted dad. So, which immediately makes me think he probably will run into his parents, both his mom and dad. Yes, they weren't really in his life. He didn't get to know his mom. His mom killed herself before he was even born, and his dad abandoned him. But I still think they are bound to him. Whether it's just this, I think it's still their fates are bound together because of that, right? You gave birth to him. So I think eventually he will run into them. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe just his dad and maybe not his mom because he didn't really know. But I still think that is his mom regardless of everything. So I feel like they might run into each other. So we'll have to be keeping an eye out for that. But thinking about running into his wife again, and let's not forget how deep their history is. The moment her dad adopted him, they've known each other since they were since he was 10 and she was probably about 10. So they've known each other for at that point for 17 years. They grew up together and they eventually got married, had 2 children. Well, 2 children together. So there's a lot of history there, and just in that moment, there's a truck heading his way, and he's just accepting it, and he's just speeding up because it's right. It's just his heart's broken just because of seeing that again. It's right, a reminder of right, she's back in my life, and it's he knows what he has to do and how heartbreaking that will be. He already broke her heart and did so much hurt to her in the previous life. He doesn't want to do it again. But the moment someone pulls over in a truck, pulls off the license plates and stuff, I was like, this is weird. And the moment he's in a truck, kind of bouncing back and forth and the music's blasting, I was like, it's going to be the old lady from the village, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, it is her. Apparently they've known each other for 50 years. I love it. Because it's these old connections coming back full circle. It's once again, how many times has he run into them in previous incarnations? Because we haven't really dived into that. Home dude that he's getting help from the private investigator. It's well, the last time we get a vision of him is back when he was taking care of Hual when he was 10 years old after his dad abandoned him. So we don't know if they've run into each other since then. But the seer, she's helping him because it's right, you saved my life 50 years ago. So I've been indebted to you. So I'm helping you with this whole thing. So I like that. I like their dynamic. Because I like the shifting of things because she was the one that's all about, kill the kid. He's an abomination and stuff like that. Interesting how things come full circle. She was anti him before. Now in this life, she's all about helping him and stuff. And even at one point, she's the one that supplies him with the animal blood he has and stuff like that, which is really sweet. She's I got another delivery, you owe me. And he's stop checking on me like I'm your son that you have to constantly check on and stuff. It's actually really sweet, their dynamic and stuff like that. I love that she was stop talking about dying. How are you going to say that to an older lady? He's you do realize that I'm older than you. And she's well, we've known each other for 50 years. But he's yeah, but that's nothing to me. It's in the end of the day, meaningless. But you can tell it kind of hurt her a little bit to hear that because it's we're in this together. He's you're going to keep your promise. She's really? Do I really have to? So the point is that she's going to be the one to watch over the well. The moment he becomes human again, he's going to lock Bulgasal. He's going to lock her in there and keep her in there for eternity. So you'll watch over it. And she's for how long? He's until you die. And then your daughter will look over it. And then your grandchild will look over it. He's what about you? Well, you could go off and have children because it's your former wife and everything. So the moment becomes human. But he's right. Even when I get my soul back, that's what all these monsters are after her for in the first place. So the moment I get my soul back, any reincarnated monsters will come after me. So But his main goal right now is killing the bus driver dude, because he's a one monster that he's aware of that will definitely be getting in the way and won't back down. So I just thought their interactions were really sweet. I'm like, I like that dynamic has become what it is. It is interesting how, yeah, you never know how you're going to meet people who are tied to you in some shape or form. You never know what shape or form that's going to manifest in. So at the same time, Sunghan is taking Siho back home. And it's like, right, we're going to have to move again. But she's like, no, like, I have a life here. Because we've been on the run for 15 years. It's just moving, never having a bank account, never having something of my own, never having friends, never getting attached to anyone. And it's like, this is no way to live. And it's like, right, this is what you're good at, running. I get you were a kid back then, but why didn't you do anything? You ran then and you're running now. And that sucks, because it's like, because she already blames Sunghan for going back. It's like, right, if you hadn't gone back, Mom and sis wouldn't be dead. That's on you. And now it's just like, I can't continue to live my life like this, especially now that she found out, well, she broke up with her boyfriend because she found out she's pregnant and he wants nothing to do with it. And I'm like, interesting, considering your ex is in your life again. Granted, you don't remember him, but he remembers you. And you guys had 2 children together, you know? So if it ends up being a boy again, it's going to be, now that's going to be really, 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 really interesting if that ends up being the case. But Sunghan is like, right, I'll help protect, you know, it's like, right, there's some good that comes into this family, so she's not going to chastise her sister too much. But her sister, like, wanted to stay away from her just because she was so upset. But she did apologize the next day, but it doesn't matter. I think a lot of what she said still stuck with Sunghan, because it's like, right, it's true. You haven't been able to have a life, and this is on me. If I listened to sis all those years ago, we wouldn't be in this situation. She could have still been alive. Maybe she could have ended all this, and you could have had a normal life. Mom wouldn't even be gone. So it is on me. And it's like, right, it's my job to protect you. Now I have even more reason to protect you because you've got my nephew. So it's like, I got to protect you, make sure you're able to have some normal life. So I have to end this. So she's still tracking down the sword. And it was interesting because at one point, Sunghan accidentally touched her. She's like, don't touch me. You know, like what happens to me when I touch people and I get these weird thoughts. I was like, what's that about? And then we got that flashback of her back in the past with Hwal. I was like, right, I completely forgot about your, like, abilities. Because I'm like, right, because they threw that in there, like, episode 1, and I completely forgot. I was like, oh, that's interesting, you're just throwing this out here now, but it's like, right, it's coming back full circle, because even in this new life, she still has those abilities, she just doesn't know about them yet, so she doesn't like touching people, because like, it wasn't until they showed a younger her, like, back in the day with Hwal, when she had her hands covered, and he unwrapped them, because by having skin touch with people's hands, makes it so that she sees stuff, and she doesn't like it, it freaks her out, so I thought I was like, right, I forgot about your powers. So that's definitely interesting. At the same time, we have Detective Kwan still investigating all this stuff, and he's asking the private investigator all this information about it. But the guy and I love that when he was like, "Oh, give me your phone." He's like, "Ha ha ha! Oh, this is sexual harassment." And just like I don't know, I love like these like slapstick like moments and stuff. And it's like, all right. He's like, fine, I'll work for you for 2/3 to pay. And he hands over his hand. He's like, oh, really? He's like, no, give me the guy's number, because he's like, I don't know the guy's name. And he talked a little bit about why. Apparently, he violated some rules when he was investigating Sunghan's family's case 15 years ago. What rules he broke? Maybe he kind of got... Maybe he skirted around the law, like a lot of gray area stuff, or maybe the way he handled some suspects or something. I don't know. He didn't go into details about what that necessarily meant, but all he said was he violated some laws and stuff in the process of investigating, so... God, there's so many moving angles to this, because we also have to circle back to Hwal with, we now know his name is Dooyeon, the kid. He broke into Hwal's place, and he's like, oh, like, you know, you saved me and everything. It's like, what about the guy? Like, how'd you get his car? I bought it from him. It's like, oh, really? But it's also like he's worried, like, oh, I can't go back to the orphanage because that guy's going to find me, so I need to ask you a favor. Can I stay here? He's like, I don't care if you stay on the street. He's like, but if I'm on the street, I'm going to, like, post all this stuff about you. You don't want that, right? And he jumps on Hwal's back, and he's smiling like, I'm like, yeah, you guys are going to be the best of friends. Hard cut to him zip tying him on the floor. I love it. He's like, all right. He's like, no, you can't really just, like, leave me tied up like this, so... he ended up answering the phone when Detective Kwan called, and it's like, oh, hello? It's like, oh, yeah, like, the owner of this house, this isn't me. And I'm like, you told him you weren't going to blab, and what did you do the moment someone picked up? Because he's a young, dumb kid being like, oh, obviously you have this number, so you must be pretty tight with him. Oh, you're investigating stuff for him. It's like, fine, I'll give you the address. Because I love that Detective Kwan, as well as the reincarnated old lady, like, she was like, this place is kind of a haunted place, and he was like, yeah, I'm kind of a ghost, and stuff like that. And even Kwan comes up being like, yeah, this place looks dilapidated and haunted. And yeah, Detective Kwan looking around, finding the pictures of Sung-un in her previous lives, seeing older pictures of her. It's like, right, this is it. He found the address where they were going to be. Oh God, like I said, there's just so much. So he ends up dragging around Do-yeon because it's like, oh, you actually know what he looks like, right? It's like, yeah, I do. Because I love that he was kind of like, yeah, like, I'm temporarily, no, I'm living here for now. I'm like, I love that everyone's in that bag right now of like, yeah, so-and-so is my best friend. You know, it's like Kate Bishop's like that with Hawkeye, Home Dude, Hamin Junsu's character in What If. Was like that about T'Challa Star-Lord. Like, T'Challa Star-Lord, yeah, he's my best friend. We're best friends. I'm like, I love when people are like, yeah, we've like only known each other a little bit, but we're besties. I love that so much. And I think we're definitely going to be seeing, I was glad to see like more Do-yeon, because I was like, yeah, he's definitely going to be around a lot more. Sad thing is, the more people that are around, the more likely the people around him around Hwal will end up getting killed yet again. So that's the complicated thing of like, hopefully this tragedy doesn't repeat, but I'm like, a lot of these people might not be safe. Not the old lady reincarnated, not the investigator, and not Do-yeon. The thing is, like, I don't think Hwal doesn't know him from a previous life. The others he does, but I think, I hope nothing happens to Do-yeon, because I like him around. I like him being like, almost like this sidekick character to Hwal. I like that. But, Hwal did show up and protect Siho when the bus driver showed up at their place. And she did touch his hand, and I thought she saw something, but no, like for her, it's like the moment she touched him, it's like, right, he didn't feel human. She has the power to see, like, I wonder, is it because he doesn't have a soul in that moment? That's why she couldn't read anything deeper, because everything else is a blur because he is a Bulgasal? Or was there other contributing factors to that? I mean, because it was like a small touch, so it might have been like a shallow read of like, he's not human. There's something off here. But he's like, right, I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to go after that monster. Because we finally find out who the bus driver was in the previous life. He's a monster that basically comes out in rainy days and kills people with a rope. And it's like, that's brutal. He kind of almost reminds me, just, I don't know what elements of it is, like, he kind of reminds me of something you see in, like, especially like when we looked in the past when Hwal and the other soldiers were confronting him and there's all those hanging bodies. I'm like, for some reason that made me think of Fatal Frame for some reason. I can't explain why. It had that creepy aesthetic, especially with it raining, that it just felt Fatal Frame-ish to me. I don't know what it was, just aesthetically. But it turns out this monster in particular, now whether any of the other monsters are, it doesn't seem that case, but this guy, the bus driver, he's working with Dark Hole. And it's like, oh, you said you weren't going to hurt the girl. It's like, no, I wasn't. I didn't touch her. And it's like, right, some guy got in the way. He was pretty powerful. He was like, oh, like, what are you talking about? It's like, don't worry, we're gonna get her this time. So don't fail me again. So Hwal chases after him. I love the whole picking up a bike and just tossing it at him, and he's just running. And of course, they're gonna cross paths with Detective Kwan. I'm like, yo, but he didn't. Once again, just not looking to the left. To the right. You didn't see him. But I love when he finally caught up to the bus driver, started beating the ever-living crap out of him. I love it. He's like, oh, you monsters, like, you reincarnated, like, you love killing people in the rain. And he was almost like, what? And Hwal tossed him around like it was nothing, like he was a punching bag at that moment, until the guy makes it. He was holding up the lighter. I was like, are you about to make this place explode or something? Like, I was like, that's not going to hurt Hwal. He's going to get back up from it. But he activates the sprinklers, and then in that moment, Hwal tries to fight him, but then he's like, oh, I get stronger in the rain. And in that moment, his eyes flicker yellow. So it's like, yes, there's some form of they can bring, like, I guess it given enough time, they can fully bring their monster selves to the surface, but it's not a quick, like it's not an instant, like, oh, now that he's done this, he gets a little boost because his monster instincts are there, but it's not enough for him to stay permanently in that state. And in the process, doesn't matter though, like, he ends up hanging Hawal, but I was like, that's also not going to kill him, but it's also like he doesn't know that Hawal is the Bulgasal, so he doesn't, so Hawal, like, ends up transforming, and it's like, right, you said it's our soul, you're working with someone else, and he was like, yeah, Darkhole, and he, the last monster he killed, a previous incarnation, he, remembered him referencing Darkhole. So you're like, interesting. But lo and behold, who shows up in that moment, it catches Hawal off guard. It's like seeing his dad again. He's like, right, get away. It's you, huh? You're the one behind this. You're the one that murdered those people 15 years ago, her family. And he bails because he doesn't want he didn't want his dad to see him like that, because he made a promise to his dad not to become a monster, and he didn't, it's like, once again, I think it's the first time he's seen his dad in like those 600 years, but also his dad made that, he's like, right, maybe when when I'm reincarnated, you'll be reincarnated as my actual son, and it leans into the whole thing of, right, the people you cared about are now reincarnated as your enemies. You and your former wife had your issues, but now she looks at you like a monster, even more so than before. Now your dad does too. So that's heartbreaking. Turns out, Songon went to visit their grandmother, or rather, Songyon's sister, the one who had raised them when they showed up 15 years ago, visit her about, like, finding a way to kill Bulgasal. And she's asking her questions about, like, right, like, what did you and my sister talk about all those years ago? Because she was like, the moment it's like, right, you guys are going to have new names, you're going to move all the time, don't get close to anyone, don't trust anyone. It's like, but what about Bulgasal? It's like, forget that, just live your life, because you don't want it to, if you mention that name, if you do any of that, he will eventually find you and kill you. So, and her way of trying to save them probably created this situation of, like, her not being properly prepared and armed to face Bulgasal. And it seems in that moment, she has a flash about her previous life. Like, she had, once again, the memories seem to surface. I guess because she has, like, a little bit of a dementia thing going on. So it's probably a cross between her actual present day memories. Well, no, because I forgot. That wasn't her. I was about to say, is that her remembering her previous life? It's like, no. She was remembering the previous life with her sister, because she's old enough for their lives to have cycled through again. That's why she's a little bit older, because her sister already died and got reincarnated as, one of the twins. And so she remembered when Bulgasal came, or it might have been Bulgasal, it might have just been the monsters, came there, killed her, and burned their house. And it's like, right, our parents burned alive. It's like, if you hadn't, I think she left to track down Bulgasal, and in the process, like, their family got attacked and she was the only survivor. It's like, if you hadn't ran away, sis, if you hadn't left in, like, why did you have to leave? But before Songon could leave, she says, kill Bulgasal with Bulgasal. In that moment, I was like, okay, so it confirms what I was thinking what I've been thinking. There is another Bulgasal. Because it's interesting, too. So far, they've only showcased there being one of every species that we've kind of gotten introduced to, of the monsters. Like, it doesn't seem like there's most of, when people think there's only one Bulgasal, it makes sense, because it seems like amongst the monsters, at least what we've experienced so far in the show, it seems like there's only one of every species. It doesn't seem like they're, like, widespread. It's like, no, they're one-offs. So, it makes sense why others would think Bulgasal is one creature, because it's not a species of creatures. It's supposed to only be one creature. That poor bastard, the other private investigator who all hired, ended up getting got by Darkhole. And I was still at first confused. I was like, because Darkhole's supposed to be the other Bulgasal, wouldn't he? But I'm like, at first I was like, maybe he's just some regular monster, or maybe this isn't Darkhole at all. But he wanted to give Songon a ride because she got a call from Siho about all that happened. And so, like, I think in that moment she started figuring out, like, who Hawal really was. And that guy, he's like, oh, I'll give you a ride. And she noticed the blood on his, like, arm sleeve. And so she tries to run. He's like, nah, I can't let you go. The fact is, she's like, why are you trying to kill me? And he shows his chest. It's like, because of this. I was like, the hell is that about? Luckily, Hual shows up in time, hits him with a car, and he gets flung off the edge, and he's messed up. And I was like, oh, I guess that's not Darkhold, or maybe Darkhold isn't who I thought he was. And he goes after Sungun, and she's got the sword in hand, and she's like, they're in a dark tunnel, and it's like, why are you doing this? Like, you know, what did I ever do to you? He's like, what did you do to me? Like, this is all your fault. And she stabs him because, like, this is for killing your family. He's like, I didn't kill them. Because 15 years ago, he was getting prepped. He's got the old lady in the cage, which she was like, no, don't leave me here. There's ghosts and stuff like that. She's like, wait, he hung up on me. Because at the time, they didn't know which sister it was. It's like, he's like, probably when he confronts them, he'll figure it out. But by the time he actually got inside, everything was already over. They were, her mom and sister were dead. And he tracked the guy outside and found someone leaving the place at the time. So he was like, it wasn't me. It was someone else. But then in that moment, he's like, wait, there's another Bulgasal? And in that moment, it hit both of them like, wait, you weren't the one that killed my parents. Wait, there's someone else beside me. Because he was under the impression, like everyone else, that there was only one Bulgasal. That is the thing. Like, in the 600 years, he's never heard otherwise. I mean, the legend is faded over time regardless. I mean, the legend was what it was, and it was inaccurate to begin with. Maybe some things have changed to create the inaccuracy there, but also, like, Bulgasal's fallen back to the wayside. Because I love that, like, while Quan's on the way with the bus driver dude, even Duyon's like, isn't this guy weird? He's like, yeah. It's like, do you know about Bulgasal? It's like, oh yeah, not my friend. Darkhold told me about him, about being an immortal monster. And then he proceeded to try and kill Quan and Duyoung in the car. Luckily, he didn't succeed. But unfortunately for him, our other Bulgasal Darkhold got up and ate him. And at first I was like, well, you're eating another monster, aren't you? But I was like, well, to be fair, they have their monster qualities, but at the end of the day, they still are human because they were reincarnated as humans. So suck. And then in that moment, Quan's looking at him and his nose starts bleeding. So I guess he has different abilities from Hual, or is it just because he drinks human blood? So he's definitely on a stronger level than Hual, because Hual just drinks animal blood. Which, I don't know if I talked about that, but it's like, yeah, like, I might have brought that up earlier, but the old lady, she's the one I think I brought it up, but yeah, her supplying him with the animal blood, because he wants to hold on to his humanity, because he knows if he starts drinking blood, it's going to be like that guy, not caring, but he made a promise to his dad not to. But to defeat this guy, he might need to go that far, because that's the only way he's going to be at full strength. Because when the time came and the two crossed paths, home dude, for one, it's like our first time really getting to see him go full on all out against another monster. Because even the fact of seeing his claws like rip into the cement of like the walls and him getting tossed around like that. Yes, yeah. But when he kind of goes all out, like there are no other monsters that really go, at least what we've seen, that can really go toe to toe with him, except for this guy, because he's at full strength. It's like, oh, you're weak because you don't drink blood from humans. And he bites Hual's neck. I was like, I guess it's almost like that weird thing. I forgot what it was. It was an interview with a vampire. I swear there was something where like vampires will drink each other's blood. It might have been a True Blood thing of like, it doesn't give you any substance, but it's like a sex thing of drinking each other's blood while you're doing it. I think that might have been True Blood. I don't remember. So I was wondering, like, what do you get from doing that? I guess just weakening him even more, like sucking up whatever like animal blood is in his system in the process. But it's like, right, we're both after the same woman, like because Song Yeon mentioned like, this is my last reincarnation, this is my last chance, and now we gotta know why this guy is after her. It's like, I will end this once and for all so she doesn't come back at all, because a Bulgasal is the only way to basically get rid of a human soul, because if you don't, they'll just keep reincarnating over and over again. But a Bulgasal has the potential. So that's interesting. Like, she ended up stealing Hual's soul, but why not steal it? Why not destroy it? Like, so what? Because this guy has a hole in his chest. I guess he's cursed just like Hual was, because Hual has like the scar on his right hand. This guy has the scar on his chest. But to be fair, there's a whole point about Song Yeon had the scar from being stabbed in that previous life, so she still had that wound. So maybe there's got to be some correlation there. Like, there's still something, a piece of this puzzle we're missing, because he was like, right, she's not only like, oh, she has your soul, but she's indebted to me too. So he's trying to punish her for something, like she did something to him so long ago. Because even he comments on like, oh, we've never met before, have we? In like this past 600 years. He's like, I'm way older than you. I've been running amok. Like that monster extermination you were a part of all those years ago. I'm the only survivor in that era. So I'm like, but that's when I'm like, how the hell did you guys avoid each other all these years, being after the same person? Well, to be fair, the paths crossed enough for him to have known about Darkhold beforehand, but this is the first time ever meeting face to face. And I like that he did seem so like, oh, maybe he's just some punk monster like everyone else, because he seems so unassuming. But like I said, then he proceeded to kick Hawal's ass, and you're like, oh, no, he's the real deal. And he's even, because he's older, you know, because it seems like it's kind of like that vampire rule of like, the older a vampire is, typically the stronger they are. So I guess it's like, basically, it's like comparing an original to like Stefan or Damon. I guess it's kind of like the comparison you could potentially make using the Vampire Diaries as an example. Cause we don't know much about like how old he is, but old enough to be like, I'm older than you and you're 600 years old. So, stabbing him with a sword and leaving him to die. But he goes after Sung-Un and he does that thing again. I don't know whether that's just some psychic ability he has, because he makes Hawal's nose bleed. And he makes her, Sung-Un's ears bleed. So I don't know if that's a special ability to kind of disorientate his prey or what. But he goes over and he plans to try and kill her and end this once and for all. But in that moment, Sung-Un thinks back to what her sister said. It's like, right, the sword you need to kill Bulgasal is a Bulgasal. Find the man with the scar on his hand. Luckily, Duyon shows up and he's like, oh man, God, you really can't die, can you? Luckily, Hawal pulled the sword out himself and throws it like a javelin and stabs the other Bulgasal. But he's like, right, I'll find you again. Because before he could hurt or kill Sung-Un, like something happened. He was like, your sister, she did something. I was like, what the hell is that about? I wanted to have some correlation to deal with the fact is that they're twins. Because we know, once again, we still don't know what it is that her and her sister talked about, because Sung-Un had asked her but never got an answer what they talked about 15 years ago. So maybe she did something to her blood in that process, because he ate their mom, and I'm assuming he did the same thing to Sung Yeon, and so maybe he did something to her blood, so that the moment he ever got close to Sung-Un again, because once again, there's something off about Sung-Un as well, because she attacked the bus driver monster. She was in a bit of a trance herself, and you're like, we still haven't gotten clarification for that. But luckily he gets chased off and Hawal is there with her, being like, right, you can't die. After I finally found you, I can't wait longer to have this solved and resolved. I need this to end. But she wakes up and she's like, it's you. You're the one my sister told me to find. You're the sword that can kill. You're the sword of Bulgasal who can kill Bulgasal. It's like, I need your help. And he's like, you want me to help you? Once again, and I think that in itself is going to play into this of like, right, ending this grudge, ending this perpetual cycle that you guys find yourself in. And maybe next episode 5, we'll get some insight and finally understanding all this, because all the players are kind of brought together to some extent, because now they're not enemies, because now she knows he wasn't the one that killed her family. I don't think Detective Quan is dead. I think he just got knocked down for a bit, but he's probably going to wake up because he saw Hongdu, so he's like, no, you're Bulgasal, I get it. So it's like, right, you're the one that killed my sibling all those years ago. But why? I mean, he's just a monster, so he's hungry, so he found prey. It's interesting how everything worked out like that. Once again, like everything's so fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it. It's so interesting how it all works out like this. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this takes us going forward in Saturday's episode. I'm excited to dive deeper into this, understanding who this other Bulgasal, Darkhold is, and why what his situation is, what his connection to Sung-Un is, like how far their history goes back. There's just so many moving pieces. That's still the biggest part to this that we don't understand. And why is it that it takes a Bulgasal to kill another Bulgasal? Is that why he has the scar? Because you were cursed, not because it was a full-blown curse, but because you were chosen. You were the only one who could potentially end this because it seems like he's coming at this from like, right, we've been stuck in this cycle, and I guess Hawal has only recently joined this cycle or whatever so he's meant to be the thing to break this forever Ouroboros snake eating its own tail situation that they find themselves perpetually in. He seems to be the wrench thrown into the cogs of fate and destiny to an extent, or at least an added piece to the chessboard, I guess, would be another weird analogy to make. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens next. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.